Oh yeah, it's Lasco here. Just doing a little last minute interview about Gladiators, just because it's been part of my project Descendent, and yeah, it's been a big fun researching it, looking at all the different sort of weaponry and armor and stuff that they had back then, and yeah, let's get started. So the intro into the Colosseum was that basically it wasn't known as a Colosseum at the time. They used to have a lot of smaller arenas around sort of Rome and other places around the Italian Empire, the Roman Empire. But the Colosseum was the biggest of its kind, and you can still see the remains of the day, where a lot of the smaller ones were all lost, with time and weathering. But yeah, so that's a big misconception. They didn't actually call it that; they called it arenas. Anyway, so let's move on to the gladiators, who were actually considered celebrities for the time. Modern days would be like rock gods, film stars, stuff like that. Any kind of like mass celebrity status besides it, the emperor and all that. I mean, they were kind of up there with the sort of slave sort of heroes. Which brings me on to the next part, which was yeah, a lot of time they were actually slaves, and they didn't really have a choice in the matter. They were bought, they were sold, they were traded. Killed, raped, whatever it really happened during those times. It was pretty tough. But yeah, through years of service, they could actually get their freedom, depending on the emperor and basically the crowd. If they won over the crowd with the thumbs up, then the more of those they had, that was basically brownie points, bonus points to get them to their freedom. But if they got that, then obviously they got it the next, so they didn't last very long. But yeah, so another part was about being a slave was that they're also sex slaves, because a lot of the bigger, muscly men were quite attractive to, I guess, Roman women with money, of course, Roman women with power, so they would actually use them a lot as slaves as well. Modern times, or slavery times, they had mandingos, which was equal equivalent. They could do whatever they want with them because they were considered property, not even like humans. But yeah, so then also their sweat, because a lot of time would be really baking hot heat in the Roman times, in Italy, sort of closer to the equator than we are here. And their sweat was sold as an aphrodisiac, as a good luck charm, basically like a modern day equivalent to rabbit's foot. That's what they had at the time. A lot of time they were used in the sex parties, sort of for sniffing or drinking or whatever they did with them. I don't know, it was like urine and stuff. They did all sorts. But yeah, let's go back to the Colosseum now, where they had rare animals all the time. So they're from all over the world. They had like tigers, bears, cheetahs, all this stuff that wasn't really native to Italy. They had to get them from Africa and basically wherever the Roman Empire had its sort of fingers and all that. Yeah, it was very sad how thousands of animals were lost over like years of basically the games, as they were called. But yeah, they were actually trained by a guy called the bestiary, who was responsible for all the animals, their upkeeping, basically their health, their care, and he would live with them, he would train them, and then also sometimes actually fight with them, depending on how the games were going, if they're running out of animals, or if he had certain animals, they had to be there to kind of train and, basically guide through the battles. So anyway, there was also a little known fact, they had lots of famous war battles, and not just basically reenactments of land battles, they had navy battles as well, which was quite surprising. I didn't know that, they actually managed a whole irrigation system where they cleared out all the sand and the dust and the debris, and then they raised up these platforms and they kind of pumped water in. Somehow they kept it watertight. Don't know how they did that for the times, but that's pretty advanced. But it's a little known fact that a lot of people don't actually know. So they'd recreate a lot of navy battles and basically big sort of historic, epics, just because it was closer to the times than we are now. Greece was a lot closer to them than we are in the modern times, but there you go. That's how they entertained themselves back then. They even had like miniature ships, so I mean, not full scale, that would have been crazy, but the fact that they had these famous battles, probably from Sparta and Greece and all that stuff, because they were paying homage to them, and also it was entertaining, which is basically because they didn't have theater yet. They had smaller sort of plays and musicals per se, but usually at private parties they would have jests and jokers, stuff like that, but then they also have singers and musicians that would come by, but not a full-on theater as we know it today with a packed house, before the virus. So the entertainment industry hadn't really developed yet, so that was one of the only things that they had at the time, which was basically slaughter, and because they were closer to death at the time, it was kind of a daily occurrence for them, people dying, people getting sick, people dying of injuries, not having the proper medicine, lots of things happened back then, because obviously it wasn't as evolved as we are now. But yeah, sadly these Colosseum arena games would go on for days, weeks, sometimes even months, depending on the budget, depending on the emperor. Commodus was a really bad one. He loved the gore and the blood, so he actually brought back the arenas and had one of the longest standing records for the arenas being open, and all over Rome, not the main Colosseum, you mind, because as the big one would be going, it'd be like smaller sort of plays or films, if you will, sort of happening on the sidelines too. They couldn't afford the main Colosseum, so they'd have their smaller sort of slums where they would have these battles, you know, these miniature fights. Another known fact, or not known, is that Roman centurions, aka the Praetorian Guard, who were the emperor's loyal sort of guards or service, you know, their personal private army, they fought as well sometimes. So as long as they were close to the emperor and the emperor was nearby, they could basically stick around. Very rarely were they sent out on missions outside Rome. It was more just wherever the emperor went, they went. So, you know, that's how they came about. They're the ones with the purple cloaks, by the way. Badass. They looked so cool, you know, but they didn't actually do much battle. They did more sort of, you know, servicing and stuff like that. Anyway, so let's go on to Spartacus, who is actually a real person, played by Kirk Douglas in the film, and then later on they made a TV show out of it, which was quite good, shot in New Zealand with some Kiwi Aussie actors, and that was pretty cool. A lot of sex, a lot of violence, a lot of 300 slow-mo sort of gore, if you will. So if you like 300, I'd give it a watch. But yeah, so they actually defeated the Romans many times. They succeeded in basically fighting the Romans back on several occasions, even though they were kind of slaves. But Spartacus was considered one of the best, I mean, gladiators of all time, really, and that's how he managed to really train. He was probably trained in the Roman army first, and then basically, you know, went on to become a rebel and a hero, if you will. But yeah, so they eventually got caught near a volcano in Italy. I think it was a northern or southern Italy. I think they retreated to the south, actually. And yeah, then they were totally outnumbered. They kept on sending legions and legions after them, you know. Spartacus kept on going around and defeating them, but then this one occasion they actually got outnumbered and caught. So he was subsequently tortured, and all the rebels in his camp and all the soldiers as well were crucified, and they had it for months. Basically, all these crucifixions lining up to the cities or leading up to Rome, the main sort of route, the main road. And it was quite, you know, a message for people, because the corpses would be rotting. They probably had kids as well, if they're part of the revolt, the rebellion. And that's how people entered Rome for many, you know, I wouldn't say years, but months during, again, depending on the emperor, depending on like how brutal they were, but to send the message that, you know, don't mess with Rome, don't oppose Rome. You know, it's like the government, basically, which they were at the time. Which, you know, leads me to my outro, sadly. This will be one of the last times I'm wearing this outfit. Just shooting the last bits of my music video now. Descendent, just because I had the costume still, wanted to make use of them. The main sort of shooting is pretty much done. The CG project, I don't know what's really going to happen with that, if that's ever going to get finished, because it's a little bit more complicated than we originally thought. But either way, you know, I mean, I got to do all these crazy little videos, and I've had fun while I was doing it. I still got a bit of back trouble, but you know, I come out here for the sun and for you guys today to give you one last tutorial on Gladiators and Descended. Peace out. Yeah. Alright. Yo, guess what, guys? It's a wrap on my music video Descendant. Took 2 days. It was supposed to only take 1, but I ran out of time yesterday because I did 3 takes, and then, yeah, way too many takes. So I was going to do 2 and then it turned into 3, 4, whatever. But it's all done, yo. So that's the test shoot out, the music video, and now we'll see if the real thing ever happens. I don't know. Depends on Dr. Bits. We'll see. But keep watching this channel. Yeah.